I, 19 female, live with my dad, stepmom, and my half-brother, tween. For weeks, it was planned that my dad and stepmom were going to her parents' 40th wedding anniversary at some fancy restaurant this past Friday night. My brother and I weren't invited because we're not adults. Since I didn't get an invitation and didn't want to be stuck at home with just my brother, I decided to make plans myself, and my boyfriend and I decided to go on a date. My dad and stepmom wanted me to babysit my brother, but they've never paid me to babysit him ever, and he's hyperactive, so no thanks. After complaining for a bit, they hired a babysitter for him. So Friday comes around and I'm doing my hair and makeup and all that getting ready for the date. My dad and stepmom had already left for dinner. While I was getting ready, I got a call from my stepmom in the car on the way to the restaurant saying that the babysitter had cancelled and that I'd have to stay home and watch him. I told her I was sorry, but I had plans I didn't want to cancel. She said it was too late to call anyone and I had to stay. I said I couldn't and that I'd be at home for another 40-ish minutes, which would be enough time for them to come back home, and they have to be back then to watch him. She just hung up. Well, I finished getting ready and even waited another 15 minutes and they were still out. So I texted them that I was leaving and left my brother home alone. We live in a nice neighbourhood and I'm pretty sure I stayed home alone when I was his age, so I was sure it would be fine, especially since they didn't bother to come back home. Anyways, long story short, when I came back home, they were already home, and my stepmom was angry that I left my brother home alone. She called me irresponsible and said I didn't care about family, etc. She also told me I'd have to pay for this vase my brother broke. This is unreasonable since I warned them I was leaving, and they had the opportunity to come back. But I don't know. Am I the idiot? Edit. My grandmother gifted the house to my mom and dad as a wedding gift. When my mom left my dad, she gave him the house under the condition I could live there up until I finished grad school if I wanted to. I only get free housing not because they choose to, but because of a contract my dad signed that he's forced to comply with. Everything else I pay for myself. And I make my own food and clean up my messes, and I have babysat him plenty of times because they've never hired a babysitter before. Because why pay if I do it for free? You didn't technically leave a young boy at home, they did. They took a bad bet and it failed. They should have come home instead of trying to strong-arm you into it. You gave them several warnings and waited and waited and waited. Oh, and they never hired that babysitter. You were lied to. Not the idiot, OP. Disagree, you are the idiot. You left a young child on their own, which is really crappy on your part too, especially given you're 19. You're an adult, not a child, and you should know better than to leave a child that age on their own. There's no excuse for that. It's your poor brother I feel sorry for. I honestly don't believe there was a babysitter in the first place. They didn't think OP would call their bluff. The problem is, though, that if, in the end, OP had stayed home, parents would know they could pull this trick again. It's a messed up situation where you don't want anything to happen to your brother, but leaving does set the tone. By the time they're his age, kids usually can stay alone for a couple of hours. And even with the kids who can't be fully trusted unsupervised, it tends to be more because you don't trust them not to mess up the house, rather than themselves. That was exactly what I was thinking. Who leaves before the babysitter comes? If there'd been a babysitter, the parents would have been there to meet this brand new babysitter, show them around, introduce them to the kid, etc. No way they would just have had some rando show up at the house and be all, "Okay kid, I've never met you before, I'm taking care of you now." Next time, if I was OP, because I have a hard time thinking this is a single incident, I would tell stepmom to come back home, or I'm calling CPS that you abandoned your kid when I told you I was not babysitting. My husband and many of my family members are calling me an idiot, and I'm not really sure anymore. For context, 4 years ago when my daughter was a tween, she desperately wanted a pool. She said that all of her friends had pools and she was the only one who didn't have one, plus she loved swimming, so she insisted that she would use it daily in the summer. My husband and I could afford one, but as I'm sure some of you know, pools are very expensive, and neither of us really likes swimming, so we wanted my daughter to understand the cost she was asking for. So we agreed that we would install a pool, but that once she was old enough to start working, she would pay us back half of it. She quickly agreed. Well, flash forward to now. She's a teen and just got her first job, and now she wants to save up for a prom dress she likes. I reminded her of our agreement about the pool, and she no longer wants to uphold her end of the agreement. So I insisted, threatening to take away her phone and car privileges if she didn't pay her father and me back. Now she won't speak to me. My husband agrees with her, saying that we can't have honestly expected a tween to keep her end of the agreement. For me, this isn't even about money, it's about teaching my young daughter the right morals to live life with. I don't want her to think she can just go around making deals for her benefit and not upholding them. Am I the idiot? Dude, you got into a verbal agreement with a tween for thousands of dollars and are now trying to enforce it? Seriously? 4 years later? The right morals to live with are that kids cannot legally enter contracts. That's the moral. You are the idiot. And just very, very misguided. LOL, yeah. A kid cannot comprehend how screwed they are by agreeing to pay back like what? $20,000? That's absurd. There are plenty of ways to teach our children morals that don't involve forcing a child to pay for a pool in an agreement she made when she was still in 5th or 6th grade. Side question, if you expect her to pay for half of the pool, will she get a real estate cut if you ever sell the house? Having a pool increases the price of a house in real estate, so if she owns half the pool, she's entitled to part of that profit. In other words, you've already seen a return. I'm also angry that they got a pool that costs thousands of dollars and not just a $300 pool from Walmart or the equivalent. It might not be as cool as an in-ground pool, but it's still a deep pool for a kid. What mom immediately goes, oh yes, let's excavate and build a pool, instead of going to the store and buying a pool, or just a $100 annual membership to a local water park? At first, I thought her end of the deal would be to clean the pool and keep it up, not pay for half of it. Who in their right mind makes a deal like that with a kid? Unless you'll give her equity in the house when you sell it in the future, get over yourself with this. My God, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've read here. The husband probably thought it was a joke. You are a double idiot, first for making such an agreement, and second for trying to enforce it. I, 27 female, planned a ski trip with my boyfriend, 29, and some of our friends, mostly his friends. We booked in advance, I told them about it and let them know they were invited or not. We planned on bringing our computers to have an LAN party, my boyfriend and I gamed together. Because we were there once, a few people wanted to go. We were really excited. Recently, I learned as we arrived at someone's house to watch a game together as a group that I am not invited on the trip any longer because one of his friend's girlfriends couldn't come due to work and now it's going to be a guy's trip. I felt pretty hurt. I got upset and asked them what right they had to disinvite me from a trip that I planned and to basically make it no women allowed for some odd reason. We plan things all the time and I attend. We share the same interests a lot of the time, so I'm confused and bothered by the implication that I'd be distracting or in the way or make it less fun. They brushed it off, so they're going now without me or anyone else female. My boyfriend feels torn. He's kind of a people pleaser and doesn't want to make waves. His friends say weird crap sometimes about women and say they're joking, but this makes me feel like they actually meant those things and don't even think of me as a friend. Instead of also being their friend, I'm their friend's girlfriend, which hurts because I've been there for many of these guys and gone out of my way for them. I've hosted at my house and always tried to make it fun. I don't understand. I told them it was messed up and I planned the trip, so they didn't get to decide that. They basically acted like I was emotional and needed to get over it. I've refused to talk to some of them since then. Everyone is acting like I don't want them to go and do things just the guys, and I'm controlling. The narrative has been lost among our friends, and I'm being painted as a villain compared to other women who were going, who were cool with it. When actually, I don't give a crap. They go out all the time for guys' nights and guys' trips. I just want to enjoy the trip I planned, regardless of being a girl or not. I don't think telling them I'm coming would even do anything. I can't imagine going now with how they clearly feel. That would be really awkward, probably. But it has created a rift between my dude and his friends, and they're telling him I'm being unreasonable and overreacting, and he's talking about not going and is really angry at them, but doesn't want to ruin the friend group dynamic. Am I the idiot? OMG, did you just overreact? And those lady hormones should unbook everything, and be emotional and irrational by forgetting to tell them they have nothing booked. Oops, my female brain made me do it. Sorry. You are not the idiot, and if it's booked by you, unbook it. Book yourself a cool trip. Make new friends. Stop making excuses for your boyfriend. He's a people pleaser? Nope, he's a spineless idiot and is a massive red flag. So ditch your boyfriend and have a fabulous holiday fling. You are hanging around with some idiots who are not your friends. They have shown you what they think of your friendship. Now listen to them. His friends are misogynistic idiots and he's torn? I gotta love how they're trying to make you believe none of the other women who were going have a problem with also being disinvited by their misogynistic idiot boyfriends. The universe gives us divine filters. This is one of them. Your boyfriend isn't the one ruining the friend group dynamic. The misogynistic idiots are. What he does with this tells you a lot about him and what you are willing to tolerate from a partner. If this is a really serious relationship, I'd think long and hard before committing to someone with such poor boundaries. This happened last week and I've been torn over it since. I'm a 64-year-old female and I have one son, Robert, with my late husband, James. Robert is engaged to Sarah, who is also 35. Last Sunday, Sarah and Robert came to my house for dinner. We were chatting and I told them a story about James, whom Sarah unfortunately never met. While I was pregnant, James was very excited and insisted on putting together everything. Cribs, changing tables, etc. Bless him, but my James was not much of a carpenter, and one day when I was putting Robert in his crib, the whole thing broke. I caught Robert in time, so no harm was done, thankfully. After the story, I made a joke along the lines of Sarah never having met that problem if they have children, because Robert is actually a carpenter. She burst into tears and asked me why I was being so cruel. I was taken aback and asked her what was wrong, as I certainly hadn't meant to upset her and I was sorry if I had. She told me they discovered recently that she's infertile and would never be able to have children, even with IVF. I apologized profusely and said if I'd known, I would never have made a joke about it. James and I struggle with having Robert and we're never able to give him siblings, so I felt awful that I'd hurt Sarah like that. The mood was ruined after that and Robert and Sarah decided to leave early. On Tuesday, I ran into Robert's best friend and his wife while I was out shopping. His wife is good friends with Sarah and seemed unusually cold towards me. I asked why and she said she hadn't known I was so rude and that I should be ashamed of mocking Sarah's infertility. It turns out that the story has been spread that I viciously insulted Sarah and insinuated she shouldn't marry Robert. The story even got back to our family and a lot of our relatives were quite upset with me. I apologized when I made the joke, but now I'm wondering if I really did overstep that badly and insult Sarah horribly. I don't want to be a bad mother-in-law and I get along quite well with Sarah ordinarily. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. You joked about your late husband's carpentry skills, not your daughter-in-law's infertility, as you were completely unaware of their situation. You cannot insult someone about infertility if you do not know they are infertile. That Sarah has chosen to make you a villain to everyone who will listen says more about her than it does about you. I'm also wondering if there's missing info. The story your son and his fiancée are sharing is so dramatically different from what you described. I think there is way more going on here. It doesn't feel like a simple misunderstanding or people being overly sensitive. You should call your son to understand better what is going on. No idiots here. It seems like Sarah was in a very vulnerable and delicate state, and I could totally see her misunderstanding what you meant to emphasize in the story, especially considering how common it is to pressure women in her age group to have kids. According to your story, you were not deliberately insensitive and didn't have all the information. I'd also be curious if you or anyone else in Sarah's life, like if her parents or relatives, have been putting pressure on her about kids purposely or not purposely. This could have been the metaphorical straw that broke the camel's back. I am a mom of two beautiful children. My youngest, Paige, just entered her freshman year. She's normally a very happy girl, but lately Paige has dreaded going to school and has even begged me not to go. However, no matter how often I asked, she wouldn't tell me why she hated school. I asked Eliza, a sophomore, to find out why Paige didn't want to go to school. She did, and it turns out that Paige has been getting bullied at school, and her peers have called her fat. Now, Paige is not a fat girl. She's very athletic and plays tons of sports, but she is a bit on the chubbier side. Since Paige wouldn't come to me about the issue, I figured I shouldn't say anything to her about it, but I did decide that I could still be helpful by making healthier meals at home. I stopped picking up unhealthy processed foods at the grocery store and instead stocked up on vegetables and whole foods. Now, here's where I may be the idiot. Paige asked me to pick up Oreos on my next trip to the store, and I finally broke and told her that instead of turning to food, she could talk to me. Paige stormed upstairs and slammed the door. Even Eliza was upset with me. It may have come out the wrong way, but I really didn't mean anything wrong by it. I just meant I'm her mom and she can always come to me. Am I the idiot? So let me get this straight. You find out that your daughter is being bullied at school due to her size, and instead of talking to her about it, you just changed available foods and are withholding snacks. You are the idiot for how you approached it with the Oreos and for not sitting down with your kid and talking the minute you found out what was going on. And instead of going to the school and getting them to manage the bullies, OP decides to manage her daughter, to make her change so the bullies won't keep making fun of her. Go apologize to your daughter and let her know you will support her in dealing with the bullying. You need to fix this and fast before your daughter ends up with an ED because her mother just backed up what the bullies are saying to her. Agreed, you could have approached this in a much more sensitive and thoughtful way, but instead you shamed her. Paige plays a ton of sports, right? Which would make her pretty fit and athletic despite her build. How many sports do you play? Are you athletic? Or are you sitting on your butt chastising her about Oreos? Poor Paige. She was bullied at school and bullied by her mom.